This is a Stories to be Told podcast. Hi everyone, Tracy DW here. Welcome to yet another episode of Stories to be Told, the podcast series. On the 30th of November 2021, Barbados transitioned from a constitutional monarchy into a presidential republic by electing their last Governor-General, Sandra Mason, as the country's first president on the 20th of October 2021. The journey from independence toward a republic has been a journey with many twists and turns in the road. After the abolition of slavery across the British Empire in 1833, the plantocracy class of mainly English origin retained control of political and economic power, while poverty set in for some former indentured servants as well as the freed Africans who remained on the island. Many sought to and succeeded in immigrating to America, and the Great Depression, which happened a century later, not only increased migration away from the island, but also acted as a major catalyst for the African Bajans to kickstart their quest for independence. Activists Grantley Herbert Adams and Hugh Gordon Cummins founded the Barbados Labour Party in 1938, with Adams elected as the country's first Prime Minister in 1953, followed by Cummins in 1958. The country's political ideology evolved, and the Democratic Labour Party was founded in 1955, with its leader, Errol Barrow, also becoming Prime Minister. Barbados eventually became self-governing in 1961 and an independent state in 1966. It has formally become a republic exactly 55 years to this date. Can Barbados's decision be an indication of the current mood across the Commonwealth? Will other countries follow suit? A poll taken in 2015 saw only 24% of its voters in support of the transition, and no referendum took place. Only an announcement in June 2020, followed by a constitutional amendment in 2021, actually took place, and all without giving the population an opportunity to respond. The historical significance of this event goes far deeper than just becoming only the fifth Commonwealth state in becoming a republic, and therefore joining the Commonwealth of Nations, as South Africa, Sri Lanka, Tanzania and Trinidad and Tobago had done before. As I went on my own learning journey to explore Barbados's colonial past, I discovered that the island contained many firsts with some interesting connections. So, as always, I'll begin with some core knowledge. Barbados is the most easterly island in the Caribbean, located in the southeastern Lesser Antilles, right on the border of the Caribbean Sea with the Atlantic Ocean. It is 20 miles long and approximately 15 miles wide at its widest point, and its warm blue waters is the home of the flying fish, Barbados's national dish. Pre-colonial history suggests human settlements existed from around 1600 BC, and Amerindians, in the form of the Arawaks, settled from around 800 to 1200 AD, and the Clinagos during the 12th and 13th centuries. Barbados is steeped in British colonial history, with some 80 English settlers establishing themselves on the island in 1627 in Hull Town, originally called Jamestown after James I of England, and is now situated in the parish of St James. These settlers consisted of some English indentured servants as well as some Africans. Now, historians have discovered that Africans were already in the Caribbean during the pre-Columbus era. So what would have been the role and purpose of these Africans in 1627? Barbados is also a first in that it is said to be the birthplace of rum, and is home to the Mount Gay distilleries founded in 1703. However, this legacy would not have been possible without having a history connected to sugar production. Tobacco was the first crop to be cultivated in Barbados until the 1650s, when the Jewish expulsion from Brazil brought the skills of sugar planting to the island. This was another first, for Barbados was the first island in the Caribbean to adopt sugar cropping and the plantation system. This totally transformed the island, clearing the natural forestry and fauna, making way for not just a new society, but also a whole new social order. A social order that would eventually emanate throughout the neighbouring islands and create repercussions that would reach far into the future, into modern-day America. If you're looking for ways to skip the trip to the post office and dodge all that hectic holiday shopping traffic, why not save time and money with Stamps.com? Stamps.com lets you compare rates, print labels, and access exclusive discounts on UPS and USPS services all year long. I always try to avoid the seasonal rush and use anything that helps me save time and money, and Stamps.com is perfect. Whether you're selling online or running an office or side hustle, Stamps.com can save you so much time, money and stress during the holidays. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the page and enter code POD. As the sugar trade expanded, becoming more profitable and lucrative within Barbados, Bridgetown, its capital, became a trading port within England's transatlantic trade routes, and was just as important as Boston in America and London in England. It was in Barbados that English settlers first displayed resistance to taxation from their mother country. The saying, "no taxation without representation," was first coined within the Barbados Charter of 1650, and their American counterparts would use this to justify their resistance and subsequent fight for independence in 1776, laying the foundation for their own Declaration of Independence. As the indentured servants gained their freedom, Africans were transported to Barbados to provide a cheaper workforce. Although conditions were harsh for Africans, deculturalising them and continual transportation from Africa were not practised to the extent that it was throughout the other islands. With women outnumbering men in both races, the African population grew rapidly and threatened to outnumber the English. So, to prevent an African takeover, planters created more detailed regulations to control these growing numbers, and within the 1661 Act for the Better Ordering and Governing of Negroes lay the first society within the English Caribbean to be organised around a code for a system for which there was obviously no English legal system that supported it, nor any precedents for its basis. This code formed a dynamic on the basis that the status of slavery remained endemic and for all perpetuity with the individual, their children and their children's children. In order to do this, slave status was maternal, passing through the line of the African woman, placing her at the bottom of the social class structure, having both sexism and racism to contend with. This maintained the economic advantage in a patriarchal society where English plantation owners were under no obligation to free any offspring that they had fathered with African women, and would instead profit even further by using their offspring as unpaid labour. Under this code, human beings were classified as chattel or property, instituting special laws and elaborate forms of punishment to monitor, deter, and to police Africans, which determined Bajan society as the English and European elite with its associated privileges, and the African underclass with its own associated disadvantages. This slave code was adopted by other islands across the Caribbean and throughout the newly colonised America. It seems that Barbados is an island of many firsts, which could be responsible for modern-day America's constitution as well as its problems with racial and social inequality. But for now, we can only reflect on Barbados's past and speculate about what the future could hold for the island. Is this the beginning of the end for the Commonwealth? And how will Barbados make its own mark? Will Barbados continue the trend and become the first in a wave of revolution as more Commonwealth states become republics? And in what way will republicanism elevate this small island onto the global stage? And do its people or officials aim to achieve some kind of desired utopia that they feel will go some way towards addressing the island's own internal issues? Is this just a small move in the grand scheme of things, or is it a checkmate in achieving the first stage of a new world order? If you liked this podcast, then stay on this listening platform and check out my other podcasts in relation to this one, such as my episode Constantinople 1453, A Catalyst for European Change, which goes back even further and shares my perspective on a world that was very different in the pre-Columbian era. Also, The Story So Far Part 2, where I share some anecdotes and a reading from my second published poetic narrative, Caribbean Rush. This tells a narrative about England's early encounter with the Caribbean. In fact, all our poetic narratives make fantastic seasonal gifts for any young historian who is being introduced to learning about the British Empire and Britain's colonial past, as well as those who are more knowledgeable and just want to explore and appreciate a new approach. Caribbean Wind, Knights at the Round Table, the Berlin Conference 1884, and Gone with the Wind, Macmillan's Speech for Change are our other titles in the series and are also available. One thing is certain, wherever you are in your learning journey, Stories to be Told will definitely help you to explore history from a different perspective. So visit storiestobetold.com and take a look at our current titles and our other resources. Don't forget to like and follow us on social media, and thank you so much for continuing to support these podcasts. Please comment and share using the hashtag STBTpodcasts. And finally, as always, it is a pleasure and a privilege to share my learning journey with you in this podcast, and I encourage you to either begin or continue your own. History is a matter of fact or perspective. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next page.